It was late March, and a few of the instructors, there were about 20 instructors on the staff in those days, and we were talking one lunchtime and they decided they'd play a joke on John. And it just happened on the night before, or the last night of March, that there was a committee meeting, and I rang Rick Johnson, who was on the committee, and said, "Rick, we want to play a trick on John." And he said, oh, I don't know. He said, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "Well, we're going to hire an aircraft tomorrow morning. When John gets here, there'll be one aircraft short." Now, to take it back to those days, we were pushing for maximum hours to fly. I think John was at 35 or 36,000 hours a year. 36,000 hours a year we were flying for, and the thought of John Douglas losing a quarter of an hour of flight time made him a pretty unhappy man. Anyway, he arrived the next morning, and sure enough, there's an aircraft missing off the line. Well, John was like a chook with his head cut off. He was running around every instructor, "Where's the aeroplane? Where's the aeroplane?" He came up to me 3 times asking about it. Finally, I admitted to it, and he sort of went away, and I said, "Hey John, what's the date today?" Because it was April Fool's Day. It took a long time for John to forgive me over that, because it was a quarter of an hour of flying time. I used to do the low-level flying in the Partenavia up to Dongra and down to Bunbury, doing the Wobbit pipeline inspection. And I used to enjoy the low flying, and now I haven't flown for 30 years. I think I could admit that I used to like knocking one of the Norths off the 200 feet low flying limit, and had a bit of a name for it, I think, amongst the instructors here. So long as it was way up in the bush and no power lines around, it was pretty safe. But this particular day I came back and parked the Partenavia outside the Aero Club hangar, right outside Glenn Cable's office. My 2 people on board that were doing the observations, they climbed out and disappeared, and I was shutting down the aircraft, doing the paperwork, and I looked up, and there's Glenn Cable standing in front of the aeroplane, shaking his fist at me with a face as long as I don't know what, beckoning to me to get out. So I climbed out and went round and said, "What's the matter, Glenn?" And he pointed down to the starboard wheel spat, and there's half a tree in it. And I said, "Hell, Glenn, I never went that low, I know. Never felt a thing." Well, Glenn went on and on and on about it, wouldn't let up. For the next week, you didn't see Rob turn around the club much. I reckon I flew about 20 hours that week just to, to stay out of everyone's way. Anyway, I was walking through the old bar downstairs here on the Friday night. Glenn saw me coming and burst into a big grin and called me over. And it was only then that that bastard admitted to me that they'd been chopping down the bushes and trees behind the hangar that morning, and he hid in a nice juicy sapling behind the Aero Club hangar door. While I'm shutting down, he put it in the wing, in the wheel spout. I've known Glenn for about 38 years now, and I tell you what, it's only the last 2 or 3 years I've really forgiven him. That's what started this grey hair. Now, John's going to hate me for this one. He's never heard this story before, I don't think. But only a couple of years before they started demolishing the old club building to build this lovely establishment, all the instructors are sitting out in the old bar having lunch, as per usual, about a dozen of us. And one of the students ran in and said, "Hey, the place is on fire, the place is on fire." We shot out of the room, and there, sure enough, the instructor room was filled with smoke. Couldn't see a thing. So I sort of raced in, and there's the old air conditioner in the window, had flames about 1 metre high coming out of it. So I immediately got someone to go and get a fire extinguisher, which they did from the front office. They aimed the thing at the fire, and a little trickle of water fell out the bottom of it, that was all. Go and get another one. So 2 minutes later, they arrived with another fire extinguisher, and the flames are bigger. And the same thing happened, it was empty. So I dispatched someone over to the hangar to get one, and while the bloke's away racing over to the hangar, all these instructors are standing around sort of saying, "We shouldn't put it out, we shouldn't put it out." Now I often wonder, I reckon if we'd let that fire go and they claimed insurance, you wouldn't have had all the financial problems that you've had since. This building might be well and truly paid for by now. Oh yes, Norm Jodrell and a few other people were down here doing competition flying on Saturday, and it was raining like hell and they couldn't fly, so they decided they'd go into the old link trainer. And Norm Jodrell was in the box with the lid down tight, did his flight not very well, was landing the thing, got down on the ground again, and while he was still inside it, they sort of kept the top shut, and someone had gone out and got a bush. And someone sort of opened the top quickly and put the bush inside, and someone else was rattling a bucket full of stones against the side of the link trainer. and scared heck out of Norm, who at the time was president, so he didn't take that one too well. And that's about all I can think of. I hope I filled in a few minutes.